Now it's time to add our header image. So let's find the header and we'll add our image element source equals. And again, I'm going to leave the width and the height off, and that's because we're going to make this image responsive. We're going to make it move with the width of the page. So we will create an alt equals, and this will be El Tango Guacamole. So I have it here. So I'm just going to copy this and add it inside. And then we'll go ahead and end our open or empty element. Now we need to place our image. So let's go to the server like we did with the icon, and here is our image. So I'm going to copy the address and let's paste this in our source like so. Now of course for the 344 class you would go to your index. You would find your folder, let's say in the projects folder, and then exercise for your folder, look in your images folder, and then you would get your correct image. Okay? All right, so I don't need to keep doing that and commenting them out. You're figuring that out by now and you're making that adjustment. All right, so we have our image, and at this point, if we save and then refresh the page, let's see what happens. All right, so our image shows up. Everything else gets knocked down the page because that's how the flow of the document works with all of our block level elements. Okay, so they're all taking up the width of the page until we use our styles to do something with them. Now what's happening is this image, remember, the nav is fixed. The nav is out of the normal flow of the document. Our type here, as well as our little avocado icon, are set to absolute. So they're using this upper corner, or they could use any of the corners like we did with our buttons here. Okay, they're using the corners to establish their start points, the coordinates, but they're out of the flow of the document. Now we did set this, it's first, so it's automatically going to go to the front, but we'd also set the z-index to 100, a high number. We usually start at 1 and go up in numbers. You can use negative numbers to push things backwards also, by the way. But what we're doing is we're bringing these elements forward, and they're staying even when we scroll. But because these elements are out of the normal flow of the document, the other elements that we either have a different type of position, like relative, set to them. There's also static. Static position is the default. And either or, what happens is they are in the flow of the document, so they have no idea that the fixed or the absolute images, as far as their position, they don't even know they're there. That's why they're behaving the way they are. So this image is actually starting up here. So we need to move it down. So let's go ahead and start that process. So what we're going to do is we're going to target the header element. All right, so the header itself. So let's scroll down in our CSS and let's go ahead and paste our header element. I'll get rid of this little extra space here. So we're going to target the header, and we're going to set the position to relative. So this just means that this element will be relative to the element which precedes it in front of it. Okay. Now there's nothing there right now because the elements we've created so far are out of the flow of the document. So the header believes it starts at the top of the body of the document. So what we have to do, by the way, we're setting the width to 100%. So it's going to go all the way across the screen. Again, I'm going to set the minimum width to 950 so it won't get any smaller. It'll stop scaling down at 950. Even if the browser gets narrower, this header will stop getting narrower. It'll get wider, 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 but it'll never get narrower than 950 by using a minimum width. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can use a maximum width also, max-width. The height is auto. The height will be automatically adjusted by the content inside. The content is the image at this point. The margin, we're going to go 100 pixels from the top. We're going to keep the right, the bottom, and the left at 0, and we're going to 0 out our margin. So if we save, okay, so when we refresh, we should see our image jump down. So the image is now drawing at the bottom of the nav, which is what we want. The next step is I want this image to stretch across the screen, and I want this image to scale with the screen. And we're doing it the way we are with an inline image and not a background image, is I want the image to continue and the header to continue to push the other content away from it. Okay? And that would be a bit more difficult if we were using a background image, because then we would have to put an absolute height on our header. And we'll go down that path later on. Right now, an inline image with the width being adjusted with CSS is the way to go. Okay, so we're going to do that by targeting the image itself inside of the header. So if we go back to if we go back to our code here, let's go ahead and paste, and I should drop this one back for the formatting. Matter of fact, I think I went all the way back like this with some of them. Probably didn't need to go back that extra step, but that's all right. Okay, so let's, and then I think this one probably, now we're pretty consistent. All right, so we're going to target the header and then specifically the image element inside of the header. And all we're going to do is set the width to 100%. So now the image will be 100% of whatever its parent is. And remember, the header is also set to be 100%, but its minimum width is set to be 950. So if we save, and we go ahead, and as soon as I update here, we should see our image go across the screen, like so. When I say the screen, the browser window. So now we truly have our hero image here and our content, okay? And if I narrow, we should see that things stop moving. When I say things, the elements inside of our interface, they stop moving at that 950 pixels, like so, okay? And then our content continues to follow. All right, so we've taken care of quite a bit. We have a page that's starting to come together. We have our navigation, which is fixed. We're going to be able to go to the previous student's recipe, the next student's recipe. We have a nice hero shot here. Now I'm dealing with this as an image which goes all the way across the browser window. You don't have to do it that way. You don't have to set a width of 100%, and you don't have to set the minimum width. You can set this image any way you like, position it any way you like, okay? This is just the path that I'm taking, the path that I'm showing you. There's lots of possibilities that you can explore on your own, or maybe you just want to go down this path also. All right, so coming up next, we will start formatting the main element, which holds all of our content, and then we'll start styling systematically, content area by content area, each of the elements inside.